Alright folks, what if I told you guys at the start of this video that modern Chinese women have completely lost their mind? Well, you guys might think I'm being crazy or misogynistic or just being pessimistic. Well, here comes one of the craziest stats of the year. Okay, get ready for this. So back in 2013, there were 13.5 million marriages that took place in China. That was a record high for China back then. So remember this number, 13.5 million in 2013. Guess how many marriages took place in China in 2024? 4.75 million. So over the course of just 11 years, just over a decade, China went from record-breaking 13.5 million marriages to just 4.75 million. That is a drop of 285%. Yes, you heard that correctly. So in just 11 years, marriage rates in China dropped by almost 300%. So China is headed for a demographic suicide, because at this rate, you have to remember, very, very important, I covered this many months ago, right, about China's household registration. So in China, in order to have children, you have to be in wedlock. The couple must be married for you to have children. Or in the cases, if a children is born out of wedlock, that child is considered to be a heihu. So a heihu, it's a Chinese child that does not have a household registration, and that child will not be able to go to school, and he or she will not be able to go to the hospital when they get sick because they don't have the household registration. So when marriage rates completely collapse, the birth rate and the demographic will completely collapse alongside with it. So what the hell has led to all of this? Well, here's something crazy, right? This has all happened very, very recently. To the people wondering why, right, China kept up the one-child policy for so long. This is a very, very recent phenomenon, right? There's also been an explosion of divorces, part of the contributing factor why so many young Chinese people, they're avoiding marriage and they're avoiding relationships altogether. Give you guys an example. Back in 2019, there were 8.5 million marriages in China. At the same time, there were 4.3 million. Yes, 4.3 million divorces in just a single year. That is a 51% divorce rate. Do you guys like those odds? So what do you think happens when the older generation of Chinese people, they tell the next generation to get married, to have children? Yeah, a lot of people, they're scared. A lot of people, they're suffering from a PTSD from seeing a record number of divorces that's happened in the previous generations. So here comes another insane statistic. By the way, these are official figures from the Chinese government. I'm not making up fake propaganda. The average wedding cost in China in 2024 for a couple to get married. So it's this number, 330,000 yuan. And you have to remember, yes, obviously, so the yuan is much cheaper when you convert it to the US dollars. However, right, people in China only make the Chinese yuan. They don't make the Canadian dollar. They don't make the euro. They don't make the US dollar. So we have to keep everything as the Chinese yuan. By the way, that's not even the craziest part. I mentioned the dowry. The dowry is real. It's a cash payment. A husband must make this cash payment to his wife if he wants to get married. So a dowry on average, once again, this is on average, right? In an average size Chinese city, if you want to get a Chinese girl, let's say that's mid 5 out of 10, you need to pay this number, 200,000 yuan. So let's really think about this, right? Just these two things. The average cost of a Chinese wedding, right, plus the dowry, that is over 500,000 yuan already. Even if you convert this to US dollars, that's already about $75,000. Once again, keep in mind, the average Chinese guy only makes the Chinese yuan here. That is a monumental amount of money. If you're wondering why the Chinese wedding costs so much, right? Because these Chinese women, they want the absolute perfect wedding, right? They want the perfect wedding dress. By the way, the concept of a wedding dress, I think it's 100%, it's just complete stupidity, because, well, you get to wear it once, right? Then, well, you hang up for the rest of your life and that's it. And what if you get divorced, right? You just completely wasted, what, 10, 20, $30,000, right? Absolutely ridiculous. And all of these Chinese women, they want like 1,000,000 roses and another 1,000,000 lilies. They want the perfect venue. They want the perfect priest, and everything has to be perfect. They want the perfect limousine, the perfect photographer. Listen, a wedding, all of that, you know, just toss all of that aside. That is one day. After that, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you as a couple, along with your spouse, you're supposed to live together for the rest of your lives. Of course, you're going to have fights. Of course, sometimes you have to take a break from each other. Of course, you're going to have struggles. But you know what? That's part of life. You know, that's the marriage vow, right? For better or for worse. in sickness or in health, right? Until death pulls us apart. That's what a marriage is supposed to be. And modern young couples, they have completely destroyed the sanctity of marriage, right? It's 100% joke now. It's just the husband giving money to his wife. If at any moment she feels like, oh my God, there's no spark, there's no chemistry, I'm not happy, we got into a single argument, then it's a divorce. I mean, what else is there for me to say, right? Over 90% of my family has been divorced, right? China in just 1 year in 2019 has 4.3 million divorces, and it's very obvious, right? It just over the course of the 11 years, marriage rates have dropped by nearly 300%. And this also means that, once again, going back to the household registration, if marriage rates have plummeted by 300% in 11 years, this will also mean that the birth rate in China has also plummeted by 300% in just 11 years. China is heading for a total demographic suicide. China is probably only about 10 to 15 years behind Japan at this point. So here's the thing, right? The dream wedding, 100% ridiculous, right? And if China wants to fix the current issue, I think there needs to be laws, there needs to be regulations. For example, and a lot of this, unfortunately, I have to say, it's you have to place the blame on the Chinese woman, because listen, the vast majority of the Chinese guys, right, they don't give a shit about the dream wedding, right? They couldn't care if they get married at a rec center or a community center or at a park in the city. By the way, it is 100% legal to do so. And yes, a very, very tiny percentage of Chinese women, they actually agree to this. A very small number, they will just get married, let's say, at a city park, and sometimes they get married at a Pizza Hut or KFC or McDonald's. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And these weddings, they cost virtually nothing. Like, you can literally get married for, let's say, 10,000 yuan if you choose to get married at KFC, versus if you want the dream wedding for a $330,000 yuan, which I think it's absolutely completely ridiculous, right? And nowadays, right, even in China, anybody can get ordained as a minister on the internet. You can invite over your best friend, right? You don't have to actually hire somebody to come over to organize your wedding. You don't need a preacher, you don't need a minister, you don't need anybody. Get your best friend to come over. He can literally print off the marriage vows from the internet, and he can now say that I pronounce you husband and wife. You don't need the dream wedding dress. Honestly, borrow an old one from a friend, wear it off a rack, and that's it. It's 100% complete stupidity. And this has all happened literally within the last 10-15 years, because even going to 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, right, the marriage rates in China was still going up. But this is the state of China now, and there's something extremely important to mention as well. For example, if you're looking to date a Chinese woman, right, if you sum up enough courage to ask her out on a date, right, let's say if she agrees to you, right, she says that I'll go on a date with you, instead of going to somewhere that's not going to cost you any money, right? If it's the first date, what's wrong with going for an afternoon stroll in a park on a Saturday night? Absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? But these modern Chinese women, not all of them, but I would say 70 to 80%, they will ask you to take them to the most expensive place in the city, right? And when they visit the restaurant, right, they won't just order 1 or 2 dishes. They will choose the most expensive, the most exquisite dishes on the menu. And a lot of times they'll order a bunch of them. They won't even eat it. They don't care. They just want to spend all of the man's money. They'll order something like, the surf and turf with a filet mignon and the butter poached lobster. Well, that's cooked with a black truffle butter topped with a saffron on the side. And they will look to completely drain a man's bank account. No, I'm 100% serious. That's the dating situation in China. 70 to 80% of modern Chinese women are like this. When you ask them out on a first date, that's if they agree with you. That's if you're lucky enough. And they will ask you to go to an extremely, extremely expensive place, and then they will order the most expensive dishes on the menu. They won't even eat most of it. They're just there to drain your bank account. This is where our world has turned into. Everything in our society is progressing backwards. And unfortunately, yes, China is following the footsteps of Japan, and China is also following the steps of South Korea. It is definitely heading for a demographic suicide. Once again, in just 11 years, marriage rates have plummeted by 285%. And if China wants to reverse this, anytime soon in the future, because something drastic has to be done, because at this rate, where China is going to get to the state where nobody wants to enter any relationships, where nobody wants to enter any marriages, and the country is going to completely die out. All you're going to see is a bunch of old people that's going to be sitting there, and they're going to be wondering, what the hell are children, right? If China wants to reverse this trend, I think it's extremely important to educate the next generation, especially the next generation of young Chinese women, because I don't know what the hell has got into their mind. It's got to be some Western woke mind virus, because it's 100% insanity. Even when I was growing up as a kid in China, I would say in the 1990s into the early 2000s, Chinese women were not like this. But now 70 to 80% of them are like this, right after after you're dating for 3 months, they say that give me 200,000 yuan if you want to marry me. And also I want the dream wedding, so you have to spend 330,000 yuan for that wedding. And obviously there are many other factors to consider on top of this, and something I haven't mentioned in this video, right? She also expects her husband to spend 3 months of his salary on her dream wedding ring, and she also expects her husband to spend at least 1 month, sometimes 2 months of his salary on their dream honeymoon. And obviously the guy has to be tall enough, obviously the guy has to be good looking enough, the guy has to be in shape, and also the guy must have a house, and also the guy must have a brand new car. There's so many things to consider. But you know what, to all the gentlemen out there worldwide that are struggling, the most honest and the best advice I can give to you guys is probably just, stay single for the rest of your life and die alone. And honestly, that might be the best option, because the future is not looking very good at all.